Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed educators and visionaries in the field of education. It's a pleasure to be here today, to be interacting with people who have different ideas, different companies, doing different initiatives all across the country. Today, I stand here not just as a representative of a government, but also a person who deeply believes in the transformative power of education. My journey as an IAS officer has been of profound learning and of continuous education. And I believe that if we want to improve governance, we have to empower people. And for that empowerment, the best tool is education. On a personal note, being a mother of twins, my daughters are 12-year-old, and this has been a very challenging and a blessing both to be a parent. What I have learned about education while being a parent has given me a completely different insight. As educators, we talk about what we have to do. We keep talking about what we have to do, what we have to give. But when you interact with children on a very personal level, then you realize they have their aspirations and we have to consider a lot more things about what they are doing. It becomes more interactive. So as I said, that being a parent is like being, it's like a master class in becoming parent and in education as well. Now, from this perspective, I want to say that I want to talk about education which is holistic. The new education policy is not just education policy, but it's a completely thought-provoking, innovative way of working where everybody is given a lot more freedom to do what they have to do. And this kind of education policy is going to make children who are going to be more resilient, they'll have critical thinking, and they can have better interpersonal skills. I would like to just mention 4 or 5 important aspects of NEP before I go on with my other presentation. One important thing is the foundational literacy and numeracy mission. And in this, what is being talked about is that for children below grade 3, there has to be a basic foundational literacy and numeracy. I'm going to talk about the problems that we are facing right now. There is a reading gap of 37% of grade 3 students in India who cannot read simple text which they were taught in grade 2. So where is this foundational literacy shortfall? Numeracy, 50% of grade 3 students are not able to solve basic subtraction problems, so which shows again a problem there. And all this comes to a systemic shortcoming in classrooms where the teacher-centric instruction-led teaching is so predominant that child-centric activities are only 14%. And there we come to the missed early childhood opportunities because we have 8 crore children between the age of 3 to 6. And if this is where we are missing out on the literacy gaps, it is a very important factor because if we do not have the FLN facilities or skills for the children, it's going to create a huge gap in their life outcomes later on. Today when I'm talking about this, I would like to specially mention the work done by Anak Cradle, Azalia, who is present here, and in 2021 she started a program called Parentwa Bane Teacherwa, in which she tried to train the parents in this basic education, and about 1,000 parents were trained by her. And a year after that, Nipun Bharat by the Honorable Prime Minister came into force, where we tried to align these parents, teachers together with the holistic learning goals. I would like to also talk about the NEP. Everybody knows about it, but there are certain things that I would personally like to focus on. And may I request you to start the presentation for that? Who's going to manage it? Yeah. Please move to the next slide only when I ask you to. Rachel Carson in 1960s was a very famous author, and I've read most of her books and I follow her. In her book, Silent Spring is now a world phenomena, but in the sense of wonder, she wrote a very beautiful thing that it's about connecting children with nature, the miracles of child and nature growing together. And she also talks about the social and the emotional skill building. We are only talking about academics, but when it comes to holistic learning, these factors are very important. And in 1962, when she wrote The Sense of Wonder, she felt that the children should not feel boredom and disenchantment. In today's world, children are so distracted with media, and yet they are so disenchanted. So there is so much, and still there is no rooting, there is no grounding. And this message is what I feel is very, very relevant for the educators today, because we do talk about environmental connect, but somewhere in the NEP there is not much written about it, and therefore there is a lot more scope to work on it. Next. A few pointers, we all know about it: holistic, flexible, modular, and therefore I come to the last point, which is the sustainable and environmental education aspect. So what are we doing about it? We are all very curriculum based, we are very classroom oriented. What are we doing for activities outside the classroom? So a couple of pointers here for all of us to think about it. And when we talk about education outside the classroom, what can be done? I mean, I just want to throw up a few ideas and let's see how we can take it forward. Next. The National Curriculum Framework, it talks about child-centered education, interdisciplinary approach, active learning, learner autonomy, life skills. And again, I come back to my point that I'm driving at, which is environmental awareness. All these first 5 points can be put into the fifth, sixth point together, and let's see how we can work at it, because all these things is what will make the child into a leader. And what I am thinking today is that every child should know, have the confidence and the faith in himself or herself that they can think differently, they have to be given challenges, and through their failures and success, they start thinking for themselves. We have to make thinkers, learners, innovators, and thereby the future leaders. Next one. Now, be in nature and enjoy. There are so many schools which don't even have a proper playground, and how do we take them to nature? So that's one challenge. If we observe the nature, there is so much that one learns. In fact, recently I read somewhere that some children in the US who were very much, the play group, they, in a city like New York, were from one building to other building. These children were taken into the woods. And one child said, "Where do I plug my mobile?" Trying to look into the trunks of a tree, because they are so used to a lifestyle where everything is plug in, plug out, that the child just could not think that in nature no such thing is available. We are so disconnected from nature. So we have to understand, learn, and here when I say that how to go ahead with it, I'm talking about collaborating with various departments of government. Maybe each state government can take up such pilot projects of creating green schools, at least 2 schools in each state, or maybe 5 or 6 such states, even if they come up. If we decide that it is done in a public-private partnership way, the land can be provided by government. It should be at least 50 acres with the kind of concepts that I'm coming through. And maybe after 30 years, the ownership of this goes back to the private partner. So there is something for the private partner to look forward to, and in 20 years they can make it into a global level school, the kind of green school or one Vidyalaya we can think of. Next slide. In this kind of a policy, obviously the Ministry of Education will be the nodal ministry, and the designing of curriculum, which is nature-based, can be looked into. Why are these green schools needed? We all know about the kind of world that we are living into, the climate changes, the problems, and our children are going to inherit whatever we have messed up with, and plus all the problems they are going to create. So where are the solution providers? This kind of a curriculum should include outdoor learning. There has to be a green infrastructure. When I say something like green infrastructure, imagine if there is a school and the school children, the parents, the local community decide to use local material and they design their own classrooms. It can be a basic carpentry workshop that they have. These kind of schools will have various facilities, such as you have a beautiful music room, carpentry section, fine arts, whatever hobbies they have to work at it, and very basic things. You employ 2 carpenters and the child can design that this is the kind of a bench or a stool that I want to study. You create everything gradually. You start with a basic minimalistic infrastructure, but go on working on it. A lot of these schools will have their own inherent and very intrinsic local designs, local material, which will show them how to live sustainably. This can come with a team of architects to be helped for the school. Therefore, I say these schools in the beginning will need a lot of hand-holding and help in curriculum designing as well as the infrastructure. How do the teachers get experience for teaching in this kind of an atmosphere is something that is another challenge. But it is not just the teachers. When you have these kind of schools, there will have to be faculty who will come from outside, train the teachers and the students, and this kind of intermingling is very, very important because the social connect of the schools now is very minimalistic. 1 or 2 days they go out, they have the outing, they meet people, but people coming in, the community coming in and sharing their ideas and we building a school together is a completely different concept. Next. This kind of green school ideology curriculum will need, it has to be value-based, you have to share the success stories. There will be lots of problems, lot of things going wrong, but then this is how we have to evolve. So even if it's a small group of 10 to 12 schools, they can learn from each other and how things are happening. There has to be a green school pedagogy, and I'm sure that a lot of people will come and volunteer to help in this. A lot of children, their parents would want children to go and study this apart from regular academics, which I'm not talking about. We are not at all interfering in that, whatever board the school wants to opt for, but these are the additional things which the school will offer, a nature-based pedagogy. Next one. What does the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate come into this? Because you can have experts coming and teaching them in their area how to create Miyawaki forest. Natural regeneration techniques are becoming very popular. If anybody has read the book by Masanobu Fukuoka about a single-star revolution and how natural regeneration techniques are giving the best possible agriculture outputs, and a lot of people have experimented. In Madhya Pradesh, in Hoshangabad, and in Barwa, there are two organizations who are working on it. And it is something that can be tried in the school, which has minimalistic input and can be managed very well by a school. How to retain water in the soil. None of our children who are going in urban schools or even rural schools are not taught about it. So these are the basic techniques, how to get a child to play with the soil, to be with nature, to learn, and to decide that what is the future, how we are going to live, how we are going to have food security, and how we are going to deal with natural calamities. A lot of things like, having open meadows, soil binding methods, to create sacred grove concepts in school. We always had sacred groves because um, we believed that environment and nature should be saved, and there was a religious aspect to it by making temples and making sacred groves. If a concept of sacred grove with a lot of biodiversity can be created in that area, the children do it, they understand, they learn. So this is the concept of green schools, which apart from academics, they're doing something different for the society. For tissue culture labs, I'll talk about it later when we come to the science and technology. Next slide, please. Why partnership with Agriculture Department? I've mentioned ICAR because if you have that kind of land, each child, each class, each group will be given a certain plot of land to grow their own thing. So basics of farming and cultivation, having the agriculture and extension officers coming and training, teaching the students as well as the class teachers. Storage of seeds. Let each of these schools become centers where you are storing seeds, because we are moving in area where our indigenous seeds are actually not to be found anymore. Unless a few people like Vandana Shiva who's creating seed banks, or there is one person in South who's creating seed banks, we are losing out on our biodiversity. So let the children understand and go and collect seeds and keep the seeds as a seed bank in school. How to do the meaning of organic farming, why organic farming is needed, and how to make it cost effective. All these experiments can be done in the school when we talk about a green school ideology. Next one. With the Science and Technology Department, the idea is to make tissue culture labs, which can be funded under CSR. So private companies can come set up these labs. And in each state, the state can identify that these are the trees, the plants which are becoming endangered, and how to grow them in lab conditions. Let the children, once the saplings come out of the lab, how to make it into a 6-foot plant, and then take it to these natural areas. Let the school go together and do the plantation. The children get a sense of achievement. The school does something which is worthwhile. And I'm sure that the state governments can actually get CSR funding for these kind of schools and set up these kind of labs. So the Green School will become a center of excellence for revival and regeneration of critically endangered flora. Imagine when the children who pass out of these schools, the kind of CV they would be having, the kind of work that they are doing, they would be welcomed globally everywhere in colleges and universities, because they have been exposed to so much more, and it is a process which is not so particularly defined, so each one has the flexibility to do what they want to do. That's the beauty of this model, and that's the beauty of NEP. Next one. Then what can we do with new and renewable energy ministry? The idea is to have at least some solar energy and wind energy instruments where the children understand that part of the energy that the school is developing through solar or wind power can be used in their grid. And these are the agencies, IRIDA or SECI. At central level, they can train some of the manpower, teachers, and they can manage this. Again, as I said, initially a lot of support needed by the government and by the private partner, but this is something that is very doable because a lot of schools across the world are doing it without government support. These schools have become international names, they have a global standing, and the kind of children who go there and study, when they come back, you know, what you need in a child is not just academics, but it's their brilliance when they do extracurricular activities, whether it is farming, singing, music, painting, writing books, whatever. This kind of approach is going to liberate them, make them think what they want to do, and we are now sowing the seeds of future leaders by creating this kind of a school curriculum. Next. Again, these schools will talk about what are the sustainable goals in a sustainable school is to have zero waste. Each child in the school is trained, and when a child learns, they want to go and replicate it at home. It makes further sense because it becomes part of their sanskar. Water management, waste management, growing endemic flora. It would be nice to have in the school campus something like orchards and vegetable gardens, medicinal gardens, and herbal corridors in the campus. None of us even identify the important herbal plants that we can use on daily basis. We only buy it off the shelf, but we never grow at home. A child being exposed to all this becomes a much more intelligent and aware child, and we should actually try to do something like this. To re-establish a child's connection with land and food is very, very important. All of us know that there are so many harmful chemical ingredients going into our food. We all know the rise in cancer, which is really becoming an epidemic now. And yet, we all feel extremely helpless because there's no time for us to stop by and think what we can contribute, what we can do. We are just buying things, not knowing how many pesticides are there in that vegetable or fruit. All these things, maybe at school level, will bring out a different way of thinking and living by the children. Next. This film Avatar showed this divine tree which, re-energizes everybody, and life is transformed after that. So this whole concept of sacred groves, being connected with nature, getting your energy, getting your ideas, new perceptions from nature is actually going to help us. This is, I feel, how the education has to adapt, and schools can also become biodiversity hotspots. Next. Before I say this, when we talk about a curriculum for globally relevant children, there has to be a content relevance, because along with global trends, we must also have connect with our heritage, which are cultural ethos, and we must have contextual adaptability. Whatever is working in Madhya Pradesh may not work in Rajasthan, may not work in Tamil Nadu. Therefore, the local connect is very, very important. And when we bring about these changes, only then education becomes holistic. And there I end with what Jiddu Krishnamurti has said about education is, it is what makes us capable of dealing with life as a whole. Many of us think of education in a very sectoral way, but this holistic education is what should make us equipped to deal with all kinds of challenges that we have to be able to deal with in life, and especially when you have children who come up with this kind of an educational setup, it would be interesting. This is just an idea. I don't think so we have anywhere one Vidyalayas or green schools at this level in India. A lot of other countries do have it. Indonesia, South Africa, Korea, Japan, all of them, the entire school thinking has changed from regular schools to green schools, but we are not giving it much thought in NEP. And I think this is the right forum where all the innovative ideas of education can germinate here, and maybe even if it's a private sector and they want to start something like this, you can all become pioneers in starting such schools. The other thing people can question is, a very few people will be, interested or enrolled if the schools are in such small numbers. What happens to the others? That is a different aspect. Because when there are a lot of schools in urban areas who do not have access to this, any school of this level, which is slightly outside the city, can become the center on weekend activities for many schools, and these synergies can be exchanged. But first, we have to start somewhere, start thinking differently, and take the environmental aspect of NEP seriously and work towards making green schools a success in India. Thank you so much.